Empower Radio presents The Miracle of Healing with Lisa Campion. Meet healers, learn different modalities, and hear empowering stories of people on their healing journey. The Miracle of Healing on Empower Radio. Here's your host, Lisa Campion.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Campion, and this is The Miracle of Healing on Empower Radio, where conscious people come together to explore the world of healing and heal the planet one person at a time. I am so thrilled to have Lee Harris with us today. And Lee's just an amazing person, has been an inspiration to me for a long time. And I know him as the guy that makes all these cool videos on his website that he calls the energy updates, which I've relied upon for years now to help me understand whatever the ambient energy is in the world that we're dealing with. And Lee has sort of a remarkable story to tell. Super happy that he's going to share that with us. So when he was 23 years old, his life really changed forever when he was kind of minding his own business on the London Underground train on the tube, and these guides made themselves known to him, these guides that we all know as the Z's, who really made their appearance during that time and have led Lee on this incredible journey of his own spiritual discovery, as really made his life out of that, and to share that journey. He's made his life about sharing his journey and what the Z's have to say with all of us for the betterment of all of us. So happy to have you with us today, Lee. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to meet you and be here. Thank you.
So we were talking a little bit before the show started about what it's like to be a psychic, and I think it's I love having other psychics on my show because it's so fun just to have a little bit of time to talk shop and share our stories.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Because I think, I don't know about you, but for me, definitely my big fear and concern at the beginning was coming up against, the skepticism that some people have or the judgment that some people have. So I think when you're with someone else who has the same experiences, whether they do it for work or not, it's just nice. You can just have an easy conversation without having to explain things.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally. And I just published a book too on the art of psychic Reiki, and it was so, in a way, scary for me to put myself out. And I'm well known in the Boston area, but this is like a whole another level of being out in the world. And I have to say that I've had really fantastic experiences, and it's been really positive. And has that been true for you too, for the most part?
Yeah, no, it has. But like you, even though I've been doing this work for years, and I'm not so much known locally in my area, but more, online. There was a moment with the book where I was a little bit like, oh my God,
Yes.
And I think it's because a book takes you to places, different places than you perhaps would normally be with your work. But it's also very defining, like for you, the fact that you have psychic in the title. And for me, the fact that even though I work a lot as an intuitive as well as a channeler, this is really 90% a channeled book. So for me, stepping into that there was definitely a moment the week before it came out when I was a little bit like, whoa.
Oh my God, what have I done?
Exactly. But like you, the response has been so positive. And I also think, I don't know if you noticed this, I feel like the world is becoming so different around consciousness, psychic and intuitive phenomena, and more people are just wanting to access it for themselves. So some of that stigma and some of that old, what I often call the old, witch and witch hunter hang around energy seems to be dissipating and healing.
Isn't that a blessing? I mean, it was something when I grew up with it, that you really had to hide, and they put people in the mental hospital. If you saw angels or talked to dead Uncle Fred or something like that, away you would go. And now it's I think so many. And don't you feel like people are really, people with gifts are really opening, like their gifts are turning on like crazy right now?
Yeah, it seems to be just spreading everywhere. Like people I've known, or like friends of my family who I could never have spoken to about this stuff years ago, and I just wouldn't. I'd have spoken to them about other things. They're like coming up to me going, "Oh my God, I think I'm intuitive because this happened," or I've been watching your videos. And yeah, I've talked to lots of contemporaries about this recently, that there is just this incredible wave, which funnily enough, the Z's always told me would happen, but I didn't really I don't know if it's not that I didn't believe it, but that was back in like 2006. So I had no frame of reference for 2019. So now we're in it. It's like, oh, I see, it's happening.
So tell us a little bit about the Z's.
Yeah, so I met them on a train. I hear them, and I hear them very clearly, and I hear them as a very definite voice to the left of my head. And so when it first happened, you think, God, am I schizophrenic? Like you said, you certainly don't tell people about it. But it was clear as day. And what I learned to do was to write down what they were saying to me and ask them questions, and then record it so that I could then look back at it with a rational, logical mind and just assess how accurate or helpful the information was. So when I look back now, I was definitely on a healing path. I was healing myself from stuff that had gone on in my teenage years. I was looking into metaphysics. I definitely had some intuition, but I think the biggest block for me with believing that the channeling could have happened to me was I thought that you either had to be special or wanting that to happen, or you needed to be, like in a monastery. And none of those three things were true for me, even though I loved intuition. But I never thought I would hear my guides. And so, yeah, they basically say that they're my guides. They are a group of 88 entities who then extend wider into source, is how they put it. Because, of course, we're all connected to everything. So even though they are a group of 88, they say we're connected to everything. So you can think of us as a consciousness library. Wow.
It's sort of unusual to have that many. Do you think it is?
Well, I've never really spoken to 88 of them. They speak in a kind of collective voice. They just basically said that's the group that we are. But they also say, as human beings, you're not a singular person either. And they pointed out to me once, they said, think of all the different aspects of your personality, think of all the different, and I thought about it and I thought, well, it's true. There's the me that's very confident, there's the me that's scared, this kind of village of people that we all have inside us to some degree.
Mm. I really enjoyed reading your book, Energy Speaks, Messages from Spirit on Living, Loving, and Awakening. And like you said, it was a channeled book, and I could really feel the energy of disease, what their frequency is, like how high frequency they are, and really how it seems to me like there's so much about love.
Yeah, I think, honestly, one of the things that I would have stopped me channeling publicly is if they weren't. And I definitely, like everybody, I went to some dodgy workshops and I met some dodgy teachers and leaders, as everyone has. Of course, I also met some brilliant ones. But I think if they were in any way not supportive of people's own speed and growth and trusting of that, rather than inflicting opinions or ideas or asking people to do things that, the people weren't comfortable with, I would never have done it. They're very loving and they're very strong. And whenever they would give me advice about things that I was seeing a certain way, I always felt their love. I never felt judged. But because of that, I think when they would point out to me, no, this is your ego and this is why it's your ego and here's how to move through it, I would always, be able to lean into it. And I know that that's the experience that people who I channel for or who hear the recordings or read the book have reported too.
Yeah, and it seems a little bit like that's their theme, Do you feel like they have like a predominant message that they're trying to bring forward?
Well, what they say about us on Earth is they say that this is an extraordinary time for us on the planet, even though, of course, we're alive for a certain amount of time. So in the scheme of, the evolution of planet Earth, we're here for a very short time in this body, in this life. But they say it's an extraordinary time of consciousness, and that the most important thing for us at the moment is love and reconnecting with each other. And love can be many things. It's not necessarily always, romance or being sweet and nice to people. It's also consciousness in action. So the ability to heal and wanting to bring a more healed world to the planet is a big part of their theme. And they speak a lot to light workers, people like yourself and myself, Lisa, who we're taking care of our puzzle piece in this ever expanding consciousness that's going on right now. We serve the puzzle piece that we are built to serve. And if we all do that, if we all take care of our piece, then as one big jigsaw piece, we get to help the world and ourselves personally illuminate.
One of the things that I really find super empowering about the message in your book is that it's like the power to heal is in our own hands, and also a little bit our own responsibility. Like we have to do it ourselves, and of course we're going to get help, but it's on us to do it. And I really find that empowering, but also comforting in a way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think one of the things that, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I noticed, because I've worked with empaths and sensitives for years, because I also identify in those terms, I've seen that it's so easy for us to give our power away to others and or get lost in other people's energy fields. Either
or feel really victimized by our guests.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they're really good at talking. I think also because they've talked to me about that stuff because I needed to hear it. They're really good at helping sensitive, intuitive, empathic people find and own their power and know what's theirs and what is someone else's and how to leave that behind.
Mm-hmm. And what advice do you feel like, because I'm so interested in, training psychics, empaths, and sensitives. That's really my thing, my sweet spot where I love to work. And so I'm just so curious, what do you feel helps those kind of people right now?
Well, I think a couple different things. I mean, number one, to remember that when you are someone who feels things deeply, and probably you have been told over the years by somebody or several people that you're too much or you feel too much, that, it's really important to re-own that for yourself, but to know that you don't have to be capsized by it. You don't have to become overwhelmed by it. And I think when you acknowledge your sensitivity and you start to let it be present in your life and you find ways to support it, we do heal. We do start to understand who we are and let this energy field that we are be a part of our life as much as the personality. And the reason I bring that up is, most of us grew up in a time where the personality was really all people talked about. No one really spoke about energy fields or emotions in a very overt way in the time that we were all born. So that really is not only what we're here to experience for ourselves as we go through this consciousness shift, but also why many of us feel compelled to stand for that and be voices for that in society. Because I don't know about you, Lisa, but I know that if more people like us had been out there doing what we do now 30 years ago, I would have had a much easier teenage years.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I that's really what makes me want to do the work that I do. Because I grew up in the 60s and 70s, outside Boston, and it was so rare and this is not something, there was no books in the library, there were no psychics on TV, there was nothing, no New Age bookstores, nothing,
Same.
and yeah, and so I had to learn School of Hard Knocks like myself, and and it was so painful. Honestly, it was so painful that I feel like any day I can help somebody not have to do that is a really beautiful day for me. Like,
Absolutely.
And that's what sort of motivates me to continue to do the work that I do.
Yeah, when I did a training last year called Impact the World, and it was to help creatives, healers, people who want to, how do I become, how do I put work around this or to take it to the next level? And the one thing that I described to the group is I said, you have to think of what we do as contributing to the wheel of life. And I said, the wheel is anything that has helped you. I said, so for me, I have many things that help me from the wheel of creativity and consciousness. And some of them were singer-songwriters like Tori Amos or Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements. I could write you hundreds of things and people that have helped me. I said, and what we get to do is we get to throw something into the wheel for other people to find.
I love that.
We all need many voices, many different ways of hearing things. And so that's kind of what I think motivates people who identify as light workers.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's a beautiful image. I love that image of the wheel. So Lee, I'm so curious about this because even though I'm a psychic, I don't really think of myself as a channeler the way that you do. And I'm so interested in like what is it like for you to have the Z's and write a channeled book, but also have Lee as a person? Like, what's the distinction, and does it get blurred, and do people think that you're the Z's? Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, one of the most tricky things for me, because I wasn't going to be a channeler, and I didn't know there was a channeling world. Like, I very quickly got taken into this channeling world, and was a channeler at conferences where there were lots of other channelers. And I definitely noticed that because you can channel, people get confused about who you are. And, I'd sometimes have to reassure people, no, I'm human. I'm going through my stuff too. Don't worry. I've got my lessons and all that stuff. So that was tricky for a while. But no, it's quite distinct for me. It's like imagine talking on the phone to a friend, and then imagine singing a song. And they're two different parts of you. You know that both of them are there, but there's just slightly different wiring. So for me, when I'm an intuitive or when I'm doing my monthly energy updates, that's me using my empathy, my intuition to speak about perhaps 3 themes that the Z's have given me that morning. But it's very different to channeling the Z's. When I channel the Z's, that really doesn't feel like, it certainly doesn't feel like my choice of language. And it's not the same vibration or personality. So I have to say, after I've done it, you feel very kind of cleansed. I mean, it can be tiring if I do it for longer than an hour, but you do feel cleansed because it's not your energy field. It's different.
Right. You probably have to really keep your field clear. Psychics call it. I think that we're always called to do deeper and deeper layers of our own work. At least I am. I'm called to work harder and harder on my own inner stuff so that I can become a clearer channel.
Well, you know what's funny? I just this month released a recording called "The Way of the Sensitive," and that was a channel from the Z's, and in it they were saying that basically people who've already been awake for a long time, sensitive people, conscious people, intuitive people, they said, well, now the rest of the world is waking up. Where do you think you're going? They said, you're not standing still. You also are swept up in this energy of evolution. And I know for myself, boy, so much in the last few months of transformation and deep healing and growth and all of that stuff. So I feel like sensitives at the moment sometimes are a little shocked that they're going through such massive changes. But it's logical if you think that the rest of the world is waking up, that you too would be going in a new direction yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the work ever stops, and
No.
I love that image of being swept up in it. And what do you think about this concept of the shift or sort of the awakening of human consciousness? How do the Z's explain it to you, and what is it like for you?
Well, they said something interesting. I did a 2019 free video on YouTube, which you can find, and I think it's called Year of New Beginnings. And they said that many people were focused on 2012 as like the shift year, and they said in a way it's going to be far more evident now, 2019 to 2026, that 2012 to 2019 was kind of a readying period and a clearing period, and now 2019 to 2026 we're going to see a lot more change at great speed, both externally but also in people's internal perception of reality, the earth, all of that stuff. So and for me personally, I find it very interesting. I feel like I'm definitely in the group that the Z's would talk about, the descended light workers. They said that there was a whole wave of people who perhaps prior to 2012 had been very coding in high frequencies, experiencing higher states of reality, and that now it was time to come back to the earth and roll your sleeves up and do your work at a new level and kind of humanize your gifts more. And I definitely identify with that latter. That feels like what I've been in this last few years.
Oh, I understand that. And yeah, to me, and then it's like you got to write a book or build a website or teach a class or do something kind of solid with those things.
One of the messages they kept giving last year, which is what compelled me to do this Impact the World training, is you are needed and now is your time. They kept saying that to groups everywhere I went. You are needed and now is your time. And I think that's where we find purpose. Sure, we can have rough days, rough parts of the day, but if we keep leaning back into our purpose, I think you are needed and now is your time is a really good way to remember that somebody somewhere, whether it's one person or thousands of people, needs you in this moment or would benefit from you in this moment.
I love that. It's beautiful. Yeah, I totally And you have a lot about self-love in your book. I was really taken with your self-love challenge, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I found self-love a challenge in my early life. I don't know about you. I really did. You know, it was totally like, I mean, if I look at how destructive I was toward myself in my teenage years when I was trying to deal with, you know, this world and who I was, but I didn't really understand who I was. Boy, oh boy. So, yeah, self-love, what they talk about is it's really important to practice. And this goes back to your question a few questions ago where you said, what can empaths and sensitives do in these times? To really learn to have a relationship with yourself as well as having a relationship with the outside world and the energy of other people and places. To focus on things that you like. So they have this challenge. They call it the 3-week self-love challenge. And for 21 days, you have to do something consciously loving for yourself every single day. So they encourage you to write a list, and they say, you know, there might be things like massage on the list, which perhaps you need money for in an hour, but there will also be things like listen to your favorite 5-minute song, which can take 5 minutes and there's no charge, or go and sit in your favorite spot in the garden. And they say write a really long list, and then for 21 days consciously stop once a day and give yourself one of these things. And that if you don't do it consecutively for 21 days, if you miss a day, you have to go back to the beginning.
Oh,
which I know, I had the same reaction. But I tell you, it moves you, and it's like keeping a gratitude journal. It suddenly rewires the way that you're aware.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely, it is challenging, and it shouldn't be, and that's so telling. You know, it's like, wow, why can't we do this for ourselves for 21 days in a row?
Oh my God, I could probably do it for that, and then I would stop and just go back to my old way. You know, like it's.
But here's the beautiful thing. The 21 days repatterns you. So even if you never did the 21 days again, it would give you a different awareness. I don't keep a gratitude journal every night anymore, but I did for a period of about 9 months, and then on and off for about 6 months. And it's really changed me. Like I now have active gratitude because I did that for a while.
Wow.
And I think this is where action is so important for intuitives. You know, we can feel and sense and vision and intuit, but bringing things into action is so important.
I know. I think we live in the world of emotion and the sort of in the ethers, you know, and I think it's always kind of a challenge to ground and be in our bodies and handle our emotions on a daily basis, which I think is a key talent that we have to, skill that we have to learn, really.
Just like for the people who are super grounded and super practical, the idea of intuition or visioning for them can be quite scary because it's completely the opposite pole of where they are comfortable and where their skills are. So, you know, those are the same things I have to kind of walk myself through to kind of focus on.
So, Lee, you're such an incredibly productive person. It's just amazing to me, and I know you're also a musician and an artist, and you have this fantastic website that has so many things on it, so many, you know, different ways that people can engage with you, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your offerings.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I think you mentioned earlier the energy updates. They're probably the most, they're definitely the most popular thing I think I do each month. And it's a free video. It's hosted at my website along with not just a transcription of the video, but I actually rewrite the wording so that it reads like an article for people who would rather read than watch. So that comes out at the beginning of every month. And if you sign up for my newsletter, we'll always send you news about that. Yeah, and I have a members club called The Portal, where every month I do a deep dive for 90 minutes, take Q&A, we go deep on what's going on energetically, and I always give people an MP3 as well. That's usually a channel from the Z's, accompanied by some music, some sound healing, which myself and my producer, musician friend Davor co-create every month. So yeah, we definitely keep busy, and we have lots of different ways to interact with me, but it's all found at my website, which is leeharrisenergy.com.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today. It was such an honor to speak to you. Like I said, I've been such a fan for a long time, and it was really delightful to have you with me today.
Thank you. It's been lovely to meet you, and thank you for all you're doing, and thank you to all your listeners for holding the space that you're all holding. Because it's funny when you speak to someone who's the interviewer, you can feel the listeners too, and yeah, you have a particularly loving gang around you, which doesn't surprise me at all, given your vibration.
Oh, thanks, Lee. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, blessings to you, honey, and all that you do, and keep kicking it out of the park, because it's fantastic, and I'm so happy to see all of us bloom in this new light.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank all of you guys for joining us here today on the Miracle of Healing, where we are healing the planet one person at a time, right here on Empower Radio.